is going to happen, I believe, is that Germany is going to gravitate Eastern Europeans. The British will play a very significant role in trying to associate Eastern European powers to herself and play an intermediary role between Europe and America and become the most trusted ally of America in this continent. Jealousies are going to be created during this struggle. German economy is going to become a very formidable force, so formidable that the rest of Europe will begin to tremble. And in the meantime, Russia will recoup, and Russia will also become a capitalist power. As such, both Germany and Russia would need international markets. As such, the same old race and the selfish competition for capturing the poorer countries as their world markets will restart, as led to the First World War and later on led to the Second World War. So there is so much yet to be done and so much yet to be seen. And also, as far as the system is concerned, China also had become an ally of Majuj, if it is Majuj, or if it is Yajuj, if it is Yajuj. I'm not certain which name to be given to what. I think Magog is perhaps the term applicable to Russia and her allies. If I'm right, then use the word Magog for this bloc. So although Russia has collapsed temporarily, it does not mean that all that Russia stood for has also completely and entirely collapsed. So there is yet to many things to happen. In Russia itself, changes are going to take place. Already forces of disintegration are at work. What that would lead to, nobody can yet say. So it is too early for us to decide that the prophecy about Yajuj and Majuj has already reached a point where only one Yajuj or Majuj is left in the field and the rest is over. It is not so. Why I am insisting that the end would be a more violent end than it seems is because of my understanding of Surah Taha. According to me, Surah Taha is so clear on this subject that at least in my mind there is no shadow of doubt that a third world holocaust is bound to take place. All the big powers are going to be crushed and totally pulverized by that holocaust. And only then the attention of man as such will ultimately turn to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yawma'izin yattabi'una dariya la yadalahu. That would be the time, the period when they will be fit to follow this Prophet who has no crookedness in him. As long as they remain crooked, they will not accept Islam. They will not be in a fit frame of mind to accept Islam. So I am referring to that conclusive verse, before which the whole picture of the Holocaust and destruction of the great power has already been described. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hazur Al-Muslim has very clearly, on the basis of Surah Al-Fajr, prophesied certain dates. and we are now in 1991-92, where he said that we will experience a Yawm al-Furqan like Al-Badr. Number two, sir, Masih Maud salam, in that very famous Roya, where he saw evil-minded enemy attacking his garden, and he ultimately approaching, and then when he reached his garden, he looked in, and the enemy were shattered, were cut to pieces, and burnt and scalded and so on. And then he said, Allah Ta'ala saved my garden and destroyed my enemy. Hazur, keeping these 2 points in mind, the return to Qadian obviously means the return of Khalifa as representative of Masih Maud salam. And when that happens, then this other part of the Roya, to me, sir, is an integral part of it. So putting Surah Al-Fajr along with this Roya and the forthcoming visit, hopefully, of Hazur means that the time is very near for fulfillment of these prophecies and promises.
But I'm not so sure of this interpretation myself, because that dream, although it speaks apparently of Qadian, in essence it is speaking of the center. And as far as what happened in East Pakistan, East Punjab is concerned, that did not happen in any way as an expression of a hatred against Ahmadiyyat, in any way as an expression of hostility to the message of Hadhrat Mirza Tahir and to his followers. But the dream which you are referring to very clearly indicates that the process described by Hadhrat Mirza is not a political process at all. It is a specifically religious phenomenon, and the atrocities committed against Hadhrat Mirza's place or center or place of residence, let's say, are committed entirely because of the message, because of him, and because of people following him. That did not happen in the case of in the situation where we had to leave Qadian. But it happened in the case of Rabwa. So why do you relate my temporary return to Qadian to this prophecy, which does not fit in?
Hazur, I did not elaborate. I understand exactly as you explained, sir. I don't mean in that sense. What I meant was that at the present time, the enemy who has been trying to destroy the garden of Masih Maud have not been India.
It's not in India.
No, sir, it's not India.
Correct.
And therefore, I'm talking about the enemy of Ahmadiyyat,
yes,
that his comeuppance is near. That's what I meant.
But why do you relate it to my return to Qadian, or not return, my paying a short visit to Qadian? That is what I fail to understand.
Hazur,
I wish that part of your interpretation were correct, that the time is near. I have no objection whatsoever against that. But the reasoning doesn't seem to be sound. Why it should be related to my visit to Qadian? If you could explain it further, please.
Hazur, I feel that obviously return to Qadian cannot mean in political sense or in the ordinary way that people understand victory and conquest and so on. It doesn't mean that at all. But it does mean our return, that is Jamaat's return to Qadian. And of course Masih Maud and Jamaat are represented by Khalifa Khan.
I know, but that return is to be a permanent return, not a temporary visit. That is what I am trying to point out. That return, number one, the way Hadhrat Masih Maud describes his panic while he is away somewhere, far away from the place where atrocities are taking place, and he knows that there are grave dangers, yet he decides to return and rush back.